يا أهل الجنة إن ربكم تبارك وتعالى يستزيركم فحي على زيارته.
These disliked acts during wudu, صح? Or we didn't do them? We stopped at the sunnah. Okay, khair. I was just thinking about a question which Ismail asked, but obviously he's not here today. He asked a question about drying oneself, so drying your limbs in the middle of wudu. Does that break your wudu? Yes or no? I said I was going to check, and the answer is no. It doesn't break your wudu, but of course it's disliked. It's disliked if someone is washing one limb. So for example, Ismail himself, he said, depending on where he would do wudu, he would wipe one foot before putting it down. Obviously, maybe the place is dirty and so on. So because of that, it won't break your wudu. And that's an exception anyway. You don't want to get your foot dirty. And obviously we know during, like in hot countries and so on, when you wash your arms, by the time you get to your head or your feet, your arms are completely dry already due to the hot weather or due to the heat. So in that case, it doesn't break your wudu. So khair. Now we'll just touch up on, now the Musannif rahimahullah, he did not mention in the book any disliked acts, but we will mention a few disliked acts of wudu which the school mentions. So number one is not to talk during wudu. So if you're going to do wudu with your boy and whatever, try not to speak about worldly matters. Now, you're about to get yourself you're about to get yourself ready for an ibadah. You're about to get yourself ready for a salah. Usually speaking, when you're doing wudu, it's for salah and the likes. So we need to be mentally and physically ready for whatever we're about to do. So when you're in salah and you're you're in wudu and you're talking about things like worldly matters and so on, try to refrain from this stuff. Okay, try to refrain from this stuff. Waliyadu billah, you find some people as well, they speak about things they're not meant to be speaking about. They'll start backbiting, or they'll start, people are doing wudu. You'll see someone else doing wudu beside you. You'll be like to your boy, look at this guy, he doesn't even know how to do wudu. Look at him, look how old he is, I don't know where he's from, and so on. So if you avoid it completely, you'll stay away from sin in general. So that's number one, yeah? Try not to talk in wudu. Number two, not to waste water, regardless of the amount. Regardless of the amount. Now, of course, too much of this will and can lead to haram. We know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like those who waste water, waste anything actually. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. And do not be extravagant, do not waste. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like those who are extravagant or those who waste. And even more so with regards to wudu, do not waste water. Something that is so important, so crucial to life and so on. Some people are dying due to not having enough of it or having clean water and so on. Think about them when you're doing your wudu, so try not to waste water. So when it comes to wasting water, it means even if you wash your limb more than 3 times, that comes under wasting water. So you need to avoid that. Okay? And if you got a problem or you have an issue of waswasa, seek refuge in Allah from the shaitan. Now, if you know you've done something 3 times, khalas, that is it. First time, obviously, is the bare minimum. Okay, you're not sure. Second time, did I get this part? No. Third time, you should be sure that, okay, I've done it. Now, so anything above the 3 times will fall into israf, which one should avoid. Next, okay, we have splashing water on the face. You'll find some people when they're doing wudu, they'll just take a scoop of water and then they'll just do this. They'll go put it in their palms and smack it on their face. That shouldn't be done. And some of the ulama, why it's been put in the disliked acts is because they say this is dishonoring the creation of Allah, meaning you're dishonoring the face. The face of the human being is the most honorable part of his. The face is the most honorable part, which is why the lowest an abd, a servant can be to Allah, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is when they are in sajda. You put the most honorable of things that Allah has given you, you put it on the floor for his sake. So splashing water, ulama they say, this falls under the category of dishonoring one's face. And the next point here is having others wash your limbs without a valid reason. Now, this may not be something we're kind of familiar with and so on, but it was the case where maybe in the past, people of pride and so on, they would have like their slaves or their servants come and wash their limbs, even though they're able to do it themselves. Of course, if there's an excuse, then you can have people wash your limbs. For example, you've got maybe your family member's got a stroke, for example. They cannot do wudu for themselves. For you to do wudu for them, yasih, no problem whatsoever. Okay? And this is with regards to any illness. If there's a valid reason, then there's no problem with one actually doing so. Next is drying the water of wudu, which we just touched on at the beginning. It is makruh after salah for one to dry the water. And the Prophet ﷺ, he once had completed wudu, and he was given a mindil, a handkerchief or something to wipe his wudu with, and he didn't use it. So because of this, and we know that obviously wudu is going to be light for us on Yawmul Qiyamah. So, and of course, even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already knows you've done wudu, but if you just leave it on you, the more you do wudu, the better. The more you leave it on yourself, the better. Of course, if it's cold, especially these days, don't do it, because you're going to get ill. Even though I think I've gone through, or I've seen Mythbusters. They say, if you go out with water on your head in the cold weather, you don't get ill. That's not true and so on. But it's known, obviously, it causes discomfort, isn't it? When it's cold outside and you put water on yourself when you go out, it's no good feeling. So in that case, there's not a problem with drying the water of wudu. But one of the main reasons is that the Prophet ﷺ, he was given a handkerchief and he didn't use it. And two, wudu will be a sign for us on Yawmul Qiyamah. We will be recognized by the whiteness of the parts, the limbs which we used to wash in wudu. Khair. Next disliked act is starting with the left. We mentioned in the sunnah that starting with the right is a sunnah. So if someone starts with the left, the wudu is still valid, but it is makruh. Of course, you'll have less ajr, you have less reward in that act that you're doing. And obviously, like we mentioned at the beginning, according to the majority, according to especially the Shafi'ī school which we're studying, wudu in and of itself is ibadah. Okay, in and of itself, wudu is ibadah, but like we said, other schools, for example, the Hanafiya, they say, al-wudu is a means to ibadah, which is why obviously we had the ikhtilaf, which we spoke about the intention, is it needed, is it not needed, and so on. So, of course, according to us, that the fact that it's an ibadah in and of itself, you will lose reward from it. And obviously, that's the last thing that you want. Alaykum salam wa rahmatullah. Is that okay? Khair. Before I move on to the next slide or the next chapter, a question. I think we mentioned this actually with regards to one who is doing wudu, and then after doing wudu, someone has a doubt if they have wudu or not. So I'm waking up. I don't know. I've left my house. 3-4 hours later, I need to pray. I don't know. Have I got wudu? Or have I not got wudu? What does one do? Who can tell me? Let's put his hand up now.
Just do wudu again.
Okay, just do wudu again. What was you going to say?
You're doubtful after you know that you're certain that you've done it, then you can do it again.
No. So yes, that's the correct basically answer. So if you're sure you did wudu, but you're not sure if you broke it, you still have wudu. Okay, so if you're sure 100%, I know I did wudu before I left my house, but I don't know, did I release something? Did something happen? Did I touch something I'm not meant to touch? You got doubt, then you stick to what is certain. Yeah, certainty does not drop with doubt. That is the general principle. But if you know you did not have wudu, but then you're thinking to yourself, did I do wudu? And you've got a doubt whether you did it or not, of course, you don't have wudu. You will stick to what you know. Yeah, which is 100% that you do not have wudu. Khair. Next, al-istinja, cleaning oneself. Yeah, istinja, which means to clean oneself. Something which is very important. Very, very, very important for the believer, for the Muslim. Now, this is part of purifying oneself. Now, there's a few things, obviously, adab, few etiquettes and so on, that the ulama have mentioned with regards to this. But first we'll read, as we normally do, the text of the author himself, rahimahullah. So he mentions, So he mentions, rahimahullah, so he says, faslun in the chapter, وَالْإِسْتِنْجَاءُ وَاجِبٌ مِنَ الْبَوْلِ وَالْغَائِطِ وَالْأَفْضَلُ I will translate this inshallah as well. وَالْأَفْضَلُ Also we can actually translate as we go along. So وَالْإِسْتِنْجَاءُ وَاجِبٌ مِنَ الْبَوْلِ وَالْغَائِطِ So istinja, cleaning oneself, purifying oneself after urinating, or releasing any feces, or doing number 1 or number 2 in our terms, it is wajib to do istinja. وَالْأَفْضَلُ أَنْ يَسْتَنْجِيَ بِالْأَحْجَارِ ثُمَّ يُتْبِعُهَا بِالْمَاءِ And what is best, or what is the most preferred, inshallah we'll go through the text in English as well, you'll understand better. So, and what is preferred is that you first use stones, yes, and then 3 stones, or that's the minimum, and then you follow that up with water. Okay, and then you follow that up with water, and then he says, rahimahullah, وَيَجُوزُ أَن يَقْتَصِرَ عَلَى الْمَاءِ أَوْ عَلَى ثَلَاثَةِ أَحْجَارٍ So it is permissible, or it is sufficient. يُنْقِي بِهِنَّ الْمَحَلُّ So it is, where do we get to? Yeah, so it's sufficient, or it's permissible that they suffice on water by itself, or 3 stones by themselves, which to clean the area with. فَإِذَا أَرَادَ الْإِقْتِصَارَ عَلَى أَحَدِهِمَا فَالْمَاءُ أَفْضَلُ But if one decides to use only one of these, which we just mentioned, so water or stones, but obviously tissue in our case, better you use water. So al-istinja, we said, which means to clean oneself. Now, istinja is wajib, which we just mentioned. Anything that comes out of the private parts and makes one dirty. Okay, even when I say makes one dirty, it doesn't have to make you dirty. Obviously, when you say make one dirty, it has to soil the area and so on. So, when this happens, it becomes wajib. Now, the musannif, he only mentioned obviously bowl and gha'it, to urinate, after one urinates and does number 2. But of course, there's other things as well that when they come out of. So why I've actually said it's wajib, anything that comes out of the private parts, because there's other things that come out of the private parts which necessitate one cleaning themselves. Clear? So meaning, and inshallah when we get to the najasa topic or najasa chapter, we'll touch more on them, but you've got things that women, in terms of istihada, they have to clean themselves. With regards to men, you've got madhi, pre-ejaculation fluid, and you've got wadi, and you've got mani, and we'll touch on all of them inshallah. So any of these things, they also necessitate one to clean the private parts. So, but there's times where it's haram. Who can think of a time when it becomes haram? Who can think of a time? Oh, it's not clear enough, the question. Yeah. Yeah. When does it become haram? Okay, I'll allow you this time, because obviously the question is probably not clear enough. What happened? No, that wouldn't be one of them. I think the question is probably not clear enough. So, with istinja, so there's 2 things here, yeah? It becomes haram in 2 cases. So, with istinja being correct, but one is sinful. And number two, istinja being incorrect and one being sinful at the same time. So number one is haram and one is sinful if, for example, they use stolen water. You steal someone's water and you do istinja with it. You become sinful, but the istinja, the cleaning of oneself, is complete and is correct. Yeah? And this could happen, for example, for the lads, we're playing football and you need to go toilet, you need to, take a leak or whatever, and you take someone's water without their permission. Yeah, this could fall under stealing, but obviously if it's your friends and it's common acknowledgement, then it's not really a problem. But it's possible that you might steal someone's water. Yeah, so istinja is still correct, but one is sinful. And the second type, when it's also haram, but your cleaning yourself is not valid, which means you will remain impure and you will be sinful, is when you use things like food, so edible items or things of honor. If you use bones, for example, all of these does not make you clean. All of these, if you use any of these, even if you've removed like some of the traces and so on of what you're using, it doesn't purify you. And another thing, for example, if you use juice, I don't know, you're stuck somewhere, you've got a can of Coke, that's all you got left. Your istinja is not valid, and you become sinful as well. Yeah? I hope, is that clear? Are there any questions on this before we move on? No. So of course, when we mention stones, we talk about tissue, obviously. So our time would be tissue, any of the type. But of course, if you don't have any, then you'll have to use whatever you have. And say, for example, it's time for salah, then according to the more correct opinion of the school is you would have to pray to preserve the time, but then you will repeat the prayer. Yeah, and inshallah we'll get to that in the chapter of as-salah when we get there. Share the question of?
I was going to say something similar. So is it okay, obviously, for one to wet a tissue?
Yeah, inshallah, I think. Yeah, I'll get to that. Inshallah, I'll get to that. So is that clear with regards to the different types, yeah, of cleaning oneself? Okay. Next is, how does one purify themselves? Now, this might sound like a simple question, like anyone knows how to clean themselves and the likes, but unfortunately, reality is most people don't know how to clean themselves. Now, most people don't know how to clean themselves. And so, there's the most preferred way of cleaning oneself, as we mentioned at the start. So we said, well, afdal is 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's that which is sufficient to clean yourself. So most preferred way is to use 3 stones, in our case tissue. And obviously back in the day, one of you, we might think right now, who would use stones anyway? Even if it's back in the day, why would they use stones and so on? Now, for us it's a bit, but of course, back in the day, the companions and so on, the food that they used to eat is not grimy stuff like our Spice Hut and our chili sauce from Spice Hut and so on, where even if you wanted to use stones, you cannot. Now, it's completely different. Yeah, so the food that they used to eat and so on, of course, is what you eat, is what will come out. Now, so what they, during the time of the companions and so on, or them days, they were not as messy as us, if I'm to put it that way. Yeah, so to use 3 stones or tissues and then water, this is the most preferred way. So even us, if we're about to clean ourselves after you finish doing whatever you're doing, use tissue first and then use water. Yeah, use tissue and then use water. But it's sufficient to use water alone, or to use 3 stones minimum, or 1 big stone which has 3 different sides. So in our case will be plenty of tissues or a big roll of tissue, for example, using a kitchen roll instead of a toilet roll. If you fold it and it's got 3 clean sides, this will fall under 3 stones itself, making it permissible. But as the Musannif mentioned, the author mentioned, if we are to stick to one, then water is best. Water is best because, of course, water is the only thing that will remove all traces. Everything will be removed. But with tissues and so on, there's a very high chance or big chance that you will not remove all traces. And we see that from those who don't use water. I don't have to go far. We see that from those who don't use water, let alone after doing number 2, even after urinating and so on, you could smell it on them because they don't clean themselves. And of course, we as believers, alhamdulillah, thumma alhamdulillah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us what He has given us in terms of purity and everything. So when using tissues or stones alone, we need to remember a few things. A few points we need to remember. Number 1 is it has to be minimum 3 stones, or obviously tissue in our case, or 1 stone or 1 tissue which has 3 sides to it which you can use. And every time you wipe yourself, you need to start wiping from a place which is clean, not a place which has najasa, because of course it's going to smudge. That would smudge and just make things worse, especially if you don't have water. So there's no maximum amount, but it's preferred that you use witr. So if you're going to go toilet, you're at work and you don't have a bottle, you don't have, and so on. If you're going to use tissue, try to make it witr. It's not a must. It's not a must, but if you make it witr, it is preferred, meaning an odd number of tissues and so on. Next is the impurities must not be dry. The impurities must not be dry. So when you're using tissue, for example, alone, and you want to clean yourself, the impurities you're about to clean, they cannot be dry, because the tissue and the stones will not clean it. They will not remove it. Likewise, for example, now if you step on, dog poop outside, you get home and it's dried, you're not going to use tissue only. You're not just going to use stones. You have to use water in order to remove all the traces. Next thing is that the dirt or the impurities. Nam.
Yeah, I was asked, when we say, must be minimum of 3 stones, is there a minimum amount for water as well? If we are using water, is there a minimum amount for water? Or is it just the stones have a minimum of 3?
Only stones are the minimum of 3. With regards to water, it should just be enough to purify oneself, like to completely remove all the traces.
If 1 stone on that job removed all those traces, would that still not be enough, where we still have to now just use another 2 stones even though they're not removing anything?
Sorry, repeat that again?
So, if 1 stone removed all the traces, would we still have to use another 2 stones or 2 corners to remove basically nothing, because 1 stone's already removed it?
Yeah, we would still have to do use an extra 2 stones, or use 2 sides of the other one, because 3 the most important thing here is 3 wipes. What's important is
it's just whatever sufficiently removes the impurity.
So no, minimum, even if 1 actually removed it, for us we'll say no, you still have to use 3 stones for that matter. Because this was the way of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Barakallahu fiqh. So we said the najasa should not have spread around the area. So if you're to use tissue alone or stones, we'll stick to tissue, the term tissue alone, the najasa cannot have spread. If it has spread from its area, you've had spice hot, it's been a long day, you cannot just use tissue. You have to use water with it. And of course the stones or the tissue must be pure. You cannot use one that already has najasa or that already dirty in order to clean oneself. And yes, it can't be used to remove impurities from someone else. Now someone might ask, how are you going to get impurities from someone else in the first place? The most cleanest example I can give is your child, your baby, and so on. You're carrying them, you've not put a nappy on them, and they do what they do. You have to use water to clean yourself, even though who would think about using tissue alone, but you have to use water to clean yourself. And with regards to the wet tissue that you asked, the wet tissue has to be used at the end. It has to be at the end. You cannot use it at the start, because if you use it at the start, any impurities that mix with that wet tissue will make the whole tissue najis, which means you're spreading more najasa around yourself. Yeah, I hope that's clear. So you use, for example, your public toilet. You've had to go to a public toilet or work in the office and so on. Use tissue, three tissues or whatever or more. Make sure you're clean. And if the only way you can use water is by wetting tissue or a bunch of tissues, wet them, and then right at the end you use this tissue. Okay? I hope that's clear with everyone, inshallah. Okay, khair. Now, the Musannif. Okay, I didn't animate it. Great. Yeah, so the Musannif, rahimahullah, naam.
For example, if you do like all of them, any of them, but the gas still comes out, like for example with the urine, is there like a cut-off point for you to say that? Just like I've been sat here for like 5-10 minutes now.
What do you mean? So say for example, so that individual, it's a good question. Any question being, your najasa keeps coming out, your urine just comes out, and you sat there for long.
Like drops.
Yeah, just drops. Yeah. So this, of course, is a common thing actually, where people have illnesses, where the urine they have urine drops all the time and they can't control it. This person would be considered as a ma'adhur, so as an exception. And I think we mentioned with regards towards wudu at the beginning that this individual will have to do wudu as soon as the salah time comes in and pray. And even if they've got drops coming out, they're exempted from it. But obviously, if you're a healthy person, then whether it takes you 10-20 minutes, you got to clean yourself, bro.
No, I think it was Ibn Umar or Ibn Umar that he used to sprinkle water on his.
Yeah, so this is a good, even a lot of ulama, they say this, yeah. So if you've got a doubt, once you finish urinating and then you normally have doubt that afterwards, is it urine on my trousers, is it urine on my boxers and so on, is it that? What they will do is, once you finish, sprinkle some water on that area, and because there will be doubt, this doubt will basically remove the ruling of it being urine and so on. Because it's doubt, it will drop. It won't be classed as urine anymore, unless you're sure that I know urine has come out. No. You had a question?
No, just go back to the first answer. In terms of, like, for example, when it's really cold,
Yeah.
and you have, sometimes you can get that urine incontinence, meaning that
Yes.
it's really cold and you just have bits of drops as soon as you do wudu as well, especially. Are you exempted from doing it again, or do you still have to do wudu?
Yeah, I mean this will depend on it will be an individual basis, isn't it? Usually, it's either you have this problem of urine coming out and so on. Even though during cold days it's tougher, but if yourself, you're a healthy person, alhamdulillah, and so on, it takes a bit longer during winter. You would have to make sure the najasa is removed completely. Unless you know you're ill, you won't be excused. Yeah, unless you know you actually have a problem and you're ill, you will not be excused. I hope that's clear.
So you have to get a diagnosis?
Yeah, you'll have to get diagnosis, from a doctor and so on. No.
What's the opinion of changing your kids' nappies? If you change them, obviously with wax or whatever you do, but none of it comes onto your hands. There's one stuff to do with work.
Inshallah, we'll get to that topic, but just to touch on it, changing your kids' nappy according to our school, touching the private parts of the baby as well, it breaks your wudu. Yeah, it breaks your wudu according to our madhab. Inshallah, if we do have time today, we will get to it. If not, bidnillahi, next week we'll probably get to the nawaqid of al-wudu. Okay, khair. Now, the author, he mentions the etiquettes of entering or relieving oneself and so on, or going into the toilet. So he's mentioned a few things. So the author has mentioned a few things which inshallah will translate as well. So he says, وَيَجْتَنِبُ إِسْتِقْبَالَ الْقِبْلَةِ وَاسْتِدْبَارَهَا فِي الصَّحْرَاءِ. So you must refrain from facing the qibla or giving your back towards the qibla when relieving yourself in an open land, in an open area. We'll touch more on that inshallah. And then he says, وَيَجْتَنِبُ الْبَوْلِ وَالْغَائِطِ فِي الْمَاءِ الرَّاكِدِ. And one needs to refrain, or one should not urinate in stagnant water. in stagnant water. Inshallah, we'll expand every single one of these. And then he says, rahimahullah, so he mentions a few more things. He says, وَتَحْتَ الشَّجَرَةِ الْمُثْمِرَةِ, and under a tree which bears fruits, وَفِي الطَّرِيقِ, وَفِي الطَّرِيقِ, and in the pathway, وَالظِّلِّ, and in the under the shade, وَالثَّقْبِ, so a thaqbi is in holes, in the ground holes and so on. We'll touch more on that as well. وَلَا يَتَكَلَّمُ, is it there? No. وَلَا يَتَكَلَّمُ عَلَى الْبَوْلِ وَالْغَائِطِ, which we mentioned, that's with regards with wudu, and they should not talk when they're urinating or relieving themselves. وَلَا يَسْتَقْبِلُ الشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ وَلَا يَسْتَدْبِرُهُمَا, and he should not face the sun or the moon, or give their back to the sun or the moon. Inshallah, we'll touch on that as well. So, there's certain things that the Musannif has mentioned that we should avoid. Now, number one, facing the Qibla. Facing the Qibla, one should avoid this. Now, especially in an open area, where there's an open area, the ulama, they say, this is totally not acceptable. Totally forbidden, especially if you know the Qibla, you should avoid it. So, if for those that can't read it, it says facing or turning one's back towards the Qibla in vacant areas. So just to repeat it, facing or turning one's back towards the Qibla in vacant areas. So that's the first point that the Musannif has mentioned. But obviously, with regards to our houses and so on, where in buildings where it's already been built, you can't do anything about it, then there's no problem. And the scholars, they mention, even in an open area, if there's a barrier, so there's a sutra, there's a barrier between you and the Qibla, even if you're facing it, then there's no problem with that as well. Okay, so, and the sutra or the covering should be as such, where the ulama, they say it should be at least 2 arm lengths, where it covers one's aura. So when one's sitting or crouching down and so on, relieving themselves, at least 2 arm lengths of something which covers you or which blocks you, then there's no problem in which direction that you face. But of course, like I said again, it's hard for us to understand this because we don't live this. We always, the bathroom, walillahi alhamd, ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But back in the days, or actually even in our back home countries and so on, people still experience such things. In the villages and so on, they would have an area where people would go to just relieve themselves. So in that situation, of course, if al-Islam reaches the people there, and it will reach, because we know this was the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that judgment day will never come, will not be established until Islam reaches every single household, even the mud huts, and the mud huts are the villages. So if one is given the benefit or the ni'mah, the blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give da'wah in such areas, then you could advise them that at least 2 arm lengths which blocks or which covers the aura. And then the second that the Musannif mentioned, urinating or defecating in stagnant water. Urinating or defecating in stagnant water. Now this stagnant water, regardless of the amount, be it a lot or not, one should refrain from, especially urinating in it, and so on. But of course, it's much worse when the water is less. If it's only a little bit of water, of course you will make the water impure. But as for flowing water, Imam Nawawi rahimahullah, he says that if the stream is small, or if the flowing water is very little in amount, it becomes makruh. It becomes makruh. Of course, the water is still pure because it's flowing, but it becomes makruh if it's a small amount, and this is according to Al-Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah. And so that's with regards to urinating in stagnant water. Number 3, which the author mentions, urinating below a fruit-bearing tree. So fruit-bearing trees, as to not to make the area or the fruit themselves najis. So for example, you urinate there, to make things worse, you take number 2, defecate in that area, and fruits are dropping. This is just going to annoy the people. Fruit's going to drop in, najasa and so on, especially if those are coming to pick or collect these fruits, and it's not even their najasa, it's going to make things worse. They're just going to start cursing. Yeah, so that's the third one. An etiquette of relieving oneself. Number 4, urinating on paths. Yeah, urinating on pathways. And inshallah I'll mention the hadith when it comes, so it's So urinating on pathways or in places of shade. Main reason is because you are causing inconvenience to the people. Now, especially in the Arabian country where it's boiling hot and there's only a bit of shade, and then you go and you do your business there. I mean, if someone sees you, they'll probably knock you out. Yeah, because of the inconvenience that you're causing. Yeah, people look out for these shades and so on, or the pathways which they take. Inshallah, we'll mention the evidences for that or the hadith for them. Number 6, which the Musannif, the author, he mentioned is urinating into holes or hard surfaces. Into hard surfaces. If it's holes, then you never know what creatures are living in there. You don't know what creatures are living in there. Now, imagine you're seeing a hole and you're just urinating, you're aiming for that hole, and there's actually living beings in there. There's the creation of Allah inside. Now, one should refrain from that. And from hard surfaces is, of course, the splashbacks. Yeah, the splashbacks. This, especially obviously for the boys, is mainly the urinals. The splashbacks, one needs to refrain from this stuff. As we know that of that hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he saw 2 graves and he went and he broke a branch, and he put one branch in one grave and another branch in the other, which you see a lot of people doing now. But the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that these 2 graves are being punished. These individuals are being punished, and one of them was being punished because he did not take care of his urine, coming back to him when he's urinating. So it's very serious. It's a very serious matter. Be careful on the splashbacks. Now, and that's even in our normal toilet seats and so on. Be very careful with that. Next one, the Musannif he mentioned, is speaking whilst relieving oneself. Now, someone might be thinking, who does that anyway? Let's be honest, generation of today, 60-70% they're going to the toilet with their phone. Yeah, and they'll make their phone calls if they have to. They'll be on chat if they have to, and so on. And unfortunately, the sad reality is a lot of Muslims, you'll see, they'll probably mention Allah's name on their text, saying, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi, or they'll say inshallah, but forgetting that they're in the house of shaitan. They're in the room of shaitan. And for the boys as well, especially those that go to school and so on, they're to listen to this after. Boys that they'll go to the toilet together, stand next to each other on the urinals. They'll start talking. One should avoid all of this stuff, which the Musannif has mentioned. And the last point that he mentioned is facing the sun or the moon. And with regards to facing the sun or the moon, with this, Imam Nawawi rahimahullah, he says that there is no base on this, and regardless of whether you face the sun or the moon, give your back to it, it's all the same. Yeah, it means nothing. But because, of course, the author, he mentioned it, it's only right that we actually mention it ourselves. Now, just to mention a few of the evidences, so there are hadith. Of the first one, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, if one of you intends to relieve themselves, do not face the Qibla, nor face your back to it, but face the east or the west. Yeah, face the east or the west. So in your house, if your toilet has been built in a way where when you sit, you're facing the Qibla, if Allah has blessed you with enough wealth, change it. For the sake of the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you'll be rewarded. Yeah, or turn it. If you can. If you've got a corner wall and it's on this side and it's facing the Qibla, put it on this wall. But obviously, not everyone has the space. Oh, you sitting on it, turn around. Yeah, you can. You can. If you're facing directly the Qibla, you can turn around. But I don't know if most would want to do that.
But didn't you say earlier, if there's a barrier between you and...
Yeah, so if there's a barrier, there's not that much of a problem, but to get that extra ajr, that extra reward, just because of the generalness of the hadith, you're doing it just for the sake of the hadith, you'll definitely get rewarded for it, 100%. And then the second one that we have, urinating in or defecating in stagnant water. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he forbade to urinate in stagnant water, and his hadith is in Sahih Muslim, and that's the hadith for it. And then the third one, so with regards to the third one, the ulama, they say with the reason for this is due to the honoring of edible stuff, honoring of the food and so on. One should not urinate in that place. But when you come to the fourth and fifth point, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he narrates a hadith. He says that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, be aware of the accursed two. So there's two individuals who are normally cursed. They're cursed by the people. And the companions, they asked, who are the two accursed, O Rasulullah? And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, those who relieve themselves in the people's paths and in the places of shade. Those who relieve themselves in the people's paths and in the places of shade. And we explained it, of course, due to the inconvenience, people will curse you. Yeah, people will curse you. And if you are deserving of that curse which they send upon you, then you better run back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala quickly. Yeah, because you wouldn't want that curse falling upon you. And number 6, Abdullah ibn Sarji radiallahu anhu, he reports the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he forbade to urinate into holes in the ground, and we mentioned in this comes hard surfaces as well, and we actually touched on the reasons why behind it. And number 7, speaking and so on, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu anhu, he says that I heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, when two persons go together for relieving themselves, uncovering their private parts and talking together, Allah the Great and Majestic becomes wrathful at this action. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes angry at individuals that do such a thing. And obviously I know the hadith in and of itself mentions two people, they're actually going together and so on. But in our day and age, you would say, just general speaking and so on. If you're at home and you know someone's going into the bathroom, try not calling them. Try not to call them, even to ask them, wait, where's this? Or where's the remote? Where'd you put? Try not to call them. If you know they're in the bathroom, let them come out. Yeah, I'm sure whoever goes in the bathroom, they'll try their best to hurry up and come out in the first place. So, obviously, if you need to go as well, then you could tell them, just tell them, hurry up. They don't have to respond. Tell them, hurry up. Yeah, tell them to hurry up. So, now next, on the next slide, the author, there's a few other things which he didn't mention, but inshallah we'll mention here. Okay, now, a few extras, which the Musannif he didn't mention, but it's mentioned in nearly all of the other Shafi'i fiqh books, is you should set aside anything with a venerated name. Anything, so names of the Anbiya, names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these things you need to keep aside. Which is why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he would go to relieve himself, either taking off the ring or it would be faced inside and covered, where we know the famous ring of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which says Allah Rasul Muhammad, or in that order. Yes, so Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would either take it off, he would cover it. Yeah, so likewise, if you're to go in there and you've got name Muhammad or something, now a question arises: what if the name Muhammad is not intended to be the name of the Prophet? It's just your boy down the road who probably don't even pray Salah. What if it's his? What should you do?
Why would you have like a ring or something with his name?
No, so say you're carrying a piece of paper. No, say you're carrying a piece of paper. Okay, so say you're carrying pieces of paper. Fair enough. Why would you have a name with his a ring with his name on it? Fair enough. Good point. Okay, say you've got a bunch of pieces of paper, or like for example myself, I'm teaching. I've done mocked exam papers and I'm going out with them. I've got names on there. I've got Muhammad, I've got Zakaria, I've got Zayn, I've got Hassan, I've got Qasim and so on. What do I do? No, you should still put it away. You should try your best to put it away. And for example, if you're out in public and you've got a ring or you find people nowadays, they're wearing chains, Allah, or chain that says Rasulullah and so on. The bare minimum that they could do is hide it away, put it in their pocket, tuck it in their shirt and so on. That's the bare minimum that they could do. Now, second point is, when you go into the toilet, you enter with your left foot, reciting the dua, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal-khaba'ith. Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from the male and the female jinn. This is their territory. So before you go in there, you're asking Allah to protect you, because they're in charge. They are in charge, and of course this is completely contrary to the masjid, where you go in with the right and you come out with the left. And then the ulama, they mention as well, putting weight on your left side. When you go to the bathroom, it's good to do so. And obviously, just recently, maybe hundreds or I don't know how many years ago, they find out, of course, that stomach is on the left. It's only since they started these scans and so on, they're able to discover the stomach is on the left. So when you're doing whatever you're doing, leaning on the left hand side will help relieve oneself or take out what one needs to take out. And of course, this Rasulullah sallallahu and so on, or the companions, they would teach this 1400 years ago. Another miracle of al-Islam. Another point is, don't spend a long time. You've got some people, when they go in there, I don't know what business they have, they do not come out. I'm sure we all know a person like this. Once they go in, they're not coming out. And especially when they know this is the house of shaitan, this is the room of shaitan. Yeah, I don't know why they don't come out, but not to spend a long time as well. Next is not to urinate standing without a valid reason. Of course, this is for the brothers. Yeah, do not urinate standing without a valid reason. We know the Prophet ﷺ is said to have done it as well, but of course there was a valid reason behind it, and he would have done it once or twice to show us that it's not haram. Yeah, to show that it's not haram. And we mentioned why, of course, with regards to standing up, that's where there's the bigger chances of splashbacks coming back to you and you getting urine on your clothes and so on. So one should avoid this. And no, that shouldn't be there. Starting with the left, that shouldn't be there. Okay, these two things I was meant to take. Okay, now, so that one shouldn't have been there, starting with the left. It should be cleaning with the left, which is, okay, it's in the bottom one. Makruh to use the right hand to clean oneself, and we mentioned that it's haram to urinate on anything worthy of respect. So anything worthy of respect, be it food, graves, bones, and so on, is haram to urinate on these kind of things. Now, with regards to bones, we know Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he told us that this is the food of who? Who knows? Who is this the food of? Yes, bones is the food of jinns. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He replaces or returns that meat on the flesh, on the bone, and the jinns, they eat. This is their food. So to urinate on them, and you see the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even on the jinn. Even on the jinn, He showers His mercy upon them. So I think one more point. None. And when you leave the toilet, it's recommended, or you leave with the right foot and you recite the dua, غُفْرَانَكَ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ الَّذِي أَذْهَبَ عَنِّيَ الْأَذَى وَعَافَانِي. You say, oh Allah, I seek refuge in you. Now, you're coming out the toilet. Why are you seeking refuge in Allah? Who can tell me? Why? What could it be?
Protects you from what happened in there. It's not the jinns live there. You know, like.
Okay, yeah, the jinns live there, but let me see, I think there's a comment. Inshallah, the lesson will finish probably about 9:05. I think we started 5-6 minutes late, isn't it? Yeah, so in about 5-6 minutes, inshallah, we'll finish. Yeah, so anyone else? What would you say? What would you say? Why would you seek refuge in Allah after coming out of the toilet?
I seek forgiveness.
Yeah, you seek forgiveness.
Yeah, in case you made any errors, there was splashback or something like that. Even though you tried your best.
No, I say you know 100% there is no splashbacks. It'll still be advisable to do so.
I think it's right, because it's the same as like when you finish salah, you still stuff still
Okay, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. You go into the bathroom, but just because you're so well mannered, you go into the bathroom and you just release gas, you just release wind, and then you come out. Yeah, just because you're well mannered, there's people around. You go into the bathroom, you release gas, and then you come out. When you go in, you should still follow this. Yani reading the du'a, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal khaba'ith. And then when you come out, you still say ghufranak. Just in case. Shaitan's in there, bro. You're going into his vicinity. So the ulama, they mentioned the reason behind, let me see if there's comments here, because we didn't mention Allah in the toilet, to remember Allah. Okay, khair. Jazakumullah khair, for those that answered online. Yeah, so the ulama, they mentioned, you say this is because when you're in the toilet, you don't remember Allah. You don't mention Allah. You don't do dhikr. You're forbidden from doing adhkar and so on. So when you come out, you seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for being or having such a time where you've actually not praised Him or done adhkar of Him. Now,
my question is there a differentiation between going to the bathroom to use the toilet and using the bathroom to wash your hands or have a shower?
Now, obviously, that's a good question. In short, I've looked into this as well. The ulama, they say, the bathroom, the toilet, they'll all fall under the same category. Yeah.
I've heard that you can listen to Quran in the bathroom as long as you're not relieving yourself and stuff like that.
There must be ikhtilaf on the matter, innit? There will be ikhtilaf, especially when the bathroom is separate to the toilet. A lot of houses you'll find nowadays, the bathroom is separate to the toilet. Now, will the hukum be there and so on? There must be ikhtilaf on the matter and so on. But sometimes it's better to avoid. Avoid. So anyway, one says ghufranak, or seeking refuge in Allah. Of course, for being in such a time where you've not praised or remembered Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillah alladhi adhaba anni al-adha wa afani. You're saying, oh Allah, all praise is to you, and all praise is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who has removed from me harm and granted me good health. So whatever you have inside you, we see those people who cannot go bathroom, who cannot go toilet, who cannot relieve themselves. We see the harm that this causes them. People that just a general thing. If you think about those they get constipated. Yeah, those who get constipated, for example, painful. Yeah, it's hard. But those who are ill and they cannot go to the bathroom, imagine them. Yeah, so this is a blessing, this is a ni'm from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we don't even think about. So when you come out of the toilet, you're asking Allah, you're telling Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're praising Him, giving Him thanks and shukr that He's relieved you from this pain and this harm, and He has given you afiyah. And one brother has just mentioned that with regards to the bathroom as well, because it's a place of undressing oneself and a place of showering and ghusl and so on, this could be one of the reasons why some ulama, they put it in the same category as well. Khair, I think, and then the next chapter is Nawaqid al-Wudu. I think we will stop here rather than starting this chapter today. Inshallah, next week we'll start this chapter. Now, are there any questions we can take? No.
What about listening to the radio when you're in the shower?
Listening to the radio in the shower. Of course you should avoid it, isn't it? Because there's certain things, if you're listening to a radio in the shower, something that will come on that you're interested in, you just stay in there, you won't come out. So one thing will lead to another, So the whole point of the bathroom, the toilet is, look, when you're going in there, and before you go in there, your goal or your aim should be get out. Yeah? This is how it should be. And to go in there, and before you even go in there, think about getting out. Yeah, so putting radios in the toilet and so on, all of these things, of course, is things we see now in the West. We should avoid them.
So do you think it's advisable to have a separate toilet in your, because most houses now, that I've seen, have got it all in one, but then is it a good idea to maybe have it separate rather than have it together? Because like Hassan said, you could go into the bathroom to pick up an earbud or put something in your hair or just dry your hands, but then you're going back into that vicinity of...
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I think there's not much of a difference really, regardless of which one you have. It will be a matter of preference, and in the house as well. Some people prefer a separate toilet because if someone's showering and then someone else wants to use the toilet, it's a problem. Yeah, it's a big problem because the guy that's showering is not even occupying the toilet. Yeah, so sometimes it's better to be separate, just in the general sense, not even in the Shari'i sense. But in terms of the Shari'i sense, the fact that there's ikhtilaf on this, the bathroom area, if we stay on the safe side, always try to follow a way in which is permissible and accepted according to all. And with regards to this, not remembering Allah in the bathroom and reading Quran and so on in this place is better, and for one to avoid. No questions?
What was the ruling on drying your limbs?
Yeah, so we mentioned that at the start. So in regards to drying your limbs, so like you said, wiping off your foot and so on, it does not break the wudu. Your wudu is still correct, and obviously you should try to avoid it, but in exceptions where you don't want to step on somewhere dirty, filthy toilet and so on, then it's permissible to do so. Your wudu is still intact. Barakallahu feek. I think we've got one question over here. So, in regards to having a bath instead of a shower, does the same rule apply in going in and getting out, not delaying the time spent? Yes, be it it's a shower, be it it's a bath, so it's a shower cabin, a bathtub, if it's just a walk-in wet room, whatever it is, this room that's known as the bathroom or the shower room or the toilet, these two places, when you go in, your intention or your next best thing is get out. Yeah, try to get out as quick as possible, because they are places where the jinn reside. Khair. Naam.
So what's the etiquette of, for example, if one needs to urinate, for example, let's say you're going on a journey, let's say M25, you can't wait to the next services, and you have to relieve yourself there. Maybe let's say you've run out of water, or you had enough water for maybe number one, and number one needs another two, for example.
Yeah.
You've run out, and there's maybe grass there or something. What's the correct etiquette of
So,
urinating and doing wudu?
okay, good question. Yani, it's a realistic question. Those on Zoom, if you need to go, inshallah, bismillah, you're free to go. So, relatable question. You're on the M25 and you need to relieve yourself, and you've only got water for number one, for example, and you can't wait to the next service stop. If there's grass and so on, best thing to do, or the etiquette would be, of course, one shoulder, hard shoulder, try to go in such a way or move to such a place where no one can see you. That'll be the first thing, where one should cover themselves. And with regards to the amount of water, and obviously, say for example, the soil is, or the ground is wet and it's muddy and so on, and you don't want to crouch down and so on, as especially for the brothers, of course, if you urinate standing up, for example, you just have to take extra care that you don't get any urine on yourself and so on. If you've got tissue, it would be advisable to put whole tissue under your private part so nothing comes onto you and so on. So nothing drops onto your clothes, making you najis as well. And obviously, if you've only got a bit of water, then you will use that to clean yourself.
Also, is it correct that you meant to give you a shower for the shaitan to go away? Someone said to me you should do that 3 times or something before one urinates.
No, I've not come across that myself. I mean, if you're going into the bathroom, you're going to his territory, he's probably telling you to shoo, go away. So, I've never heard of that, to be honest, so I can't comment on it. Naam. Khair. I think we'll stop there. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Inshallah, next week, same times. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If you do have questions, inshallah, you remember you have questions after, you can keep them or write them down for next week, and we can start the lesson with questions that you might have. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.